Let's go.
Let's jump in. Right, cool. Right, well, welcome to Manchester SEO Podcast. Today we've got the Managing Director of City Lock and Safe, business that's been going for 67 years.
Established 1957.
1957, so. Family business.
Indeed.
Well, welcome onto the pod.
Thank you for inviting me.
And tell us about yourself and the business.
Yeah, so as you quite rightly say, I'm a third generation of a family-owned business, City Lock and Safe. We established in 1957 by my grandfather.
Wow.
And then he ran the company for a number of years with a partner by the name of Austin Chadwick, until there came a point in Austin's life where he didn't enjoy being in business,
right.
And he was happy to be employed.
Yeah.
And so went to my grandfather with what he wanted.
Yeah.
And that made that happen, which meant that the company then was sort of in the Clarke name solely.
Yeah.
And then some time after that, my father joined the company, and then he ran the company, and then I joined on a part-time basis in 2003, and then joined full-time in 2005, and I've been a director of the company now for the last 9 years, and sort of running it on a day-to-day basis for the last certainly 5 or 6 years, really.
Amazing. And so City Lock and Safe kind of says what it does.
We're locksmiths, master locksmiths, safe engineers, and architectural ironmongers, if we were to put it sort of.
Okay.
If we were to label it, or we are a few things more than that.
Yeah.
And across the year, the company is made up of sort of 12 or 13 various nominal codes, as we would call them. So if we have a retail shop, we've got a service department.
Right.
And we sell and install safes all around the UK.
Yeah.
And various aspects like that. So that's what sort of packages the company together.
Sure.
On a 12-month period.
Amazing. And so, with that in mind, family business, there must be some interesting stories over the years with your grandfather and then your dad taking over, and how they've kept the business going. And
I'm sure there are some. When I joined, my grandfather had sort of firmly left the firm.
Right.
By the time I got involved. But I do hear lots and lots of stories of the good old days.
Yeah.
When business was done in a slightly different manner than what it may be done today. But certainly me and my father have spent the majority of our sort of, all of my working life together. Yeah. In the last 20 years of his. And that's something I'm quite proud of, something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And something that it takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But it's rewarding.
It must be very different working with family compared to. But I've never worked with my family, so I think
the key with any family business is that fundamentally it has to be a business.
Yeah.
And at some point that there's sort of the family nature of it has to be put to one side.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't sustain a business for a period of 67 years or so.
Yeah.
By treating it more as a family running concern rather than it being a business. So I think that's one thing that we've been very, very good at from day one, really, is that business is always business, and it's been run as a business.
Yeah. And
that's what sort of sustained it for such a long period of time.
Sure. You mentioned master locksmiths. What does it take to be called master locksmith these days? So
for a company to become a master locksmith, you would apply to the Master Locksmith Association. They're not necessarily what you would class as a governing body.
Right.
But they're a recognised body sort of within the UK.
Yeah.
They're not like you would maybe class Corgi registered for a plumber, where you would have to be Corgi registered in order to work, do a nature of work, whether it be on a boiler, for etc. Sure. However, it's a good accreditation to have, and it gives peace of mind to the end user, the client, the customer.
Right.
And for us to get it as a company, we have to be accredited, and we have to be checked and inspected. I think it's on a 3 or 5 yearly basis.
Okay.
And that's how we get our company membership.
Right.
What we also have then is we've got a great team of staff. We can employ 5 locksmiths currently, 4 of which are accredited as master locksmiths themselves, which meant that they've been to the Master Locksmith Association and carried out a written examination and practical examinations to be accredited as Master Locksmiths.
Right. Just a few things then. Well, so in day-to-day life, you must get called out by people who've been locked out or of their houses. And
yeah, we do. So the basis of the business is that we're made up. We do an element of domestic work,
right,
and we do an element of then commercial and industrial work. So on a domestic basis, we get called out to customers that have been locked out,
right,
customers that have been sadly broken into, customers that have moved house and want to have their locks changed so the previous owners don't have a key, customers that need to upgrade their locks, instances where maybe crime has been committed in a certain area,
right,
and then proactive customers within that sort of area or decide that they want to improve their physical, mechanical security.
Sure.
So hopefully avoid the same thing happening to them.
So you help them at the time and then potentially with some form of solution to help them not get broken into again. Or,
yeah.
You obviously get called out to a lot of different situations, a lot of things that are going on. Are there any patterns in terms of the types of things that are happening to people domestically that are getting broken into these days?
Well, most certainly, yeah. And over the last, I would say the last 5 years, we're based in Stockport, Greater Manchester. So in that sort of South Manchester, Cheshire region, border area, there's something that's called lock snapping.
Okay.
It's been around for quite a long time. It's a technique that locksmiths and master locksmiths were aware of for a number of years.
Right.
But I would say about 10 or 12 years ago, that became prominent then within organised crime.
Okay.
It started over in Yorkshire and it's made its way across. And these criminals can target UPVC and composite doors,
right,
where there's a weak point in the cylinder which allows them to snap the lock relatively quickly to gain entry to a property, and they can do that in a matter of seconds.
Right.
And a few years ago that was very, very prominent in sort of our area, where every morning the phone would ring and it would be the same story, and we'd see patterns.
Yeah.
And you could almost predict that they'd be out Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and then the following day we'd follow around. And there were instances where we would do a whole street, we'd almost do a neighbourhood. And thankfully with the way that people communicate nowadays, with the likes of WhatsApp groups, and neighbourhood watch groups and Facebook groups for areas, streets, cul-de-sacs, new build developments, people like to say relatively connected, word gets around quite quickly.
Yeah.
And we had a solution out there that would protect your home from that attack and stop vulnerable doors from being susceptible.
Right. Interesting. So, having been established for so long, you've obviously seen changes in not only the world that you service, but actually business as a whole.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Because we established in 1957, so to put that into some sort of context, we predated decimalisation and VAT. Right, so we've not got problems in adapting to change, because an awful lot has changed over that time. And I guess one of the challenges, or one of my challenges now, sort of running the company, is that how we then stay relevant and stay in the public eye in an ever-changing world. Long before emails and the way people communicate nowadays, we were operating. And one of the things that we've picked up on in the past when we spoke is that how do you get a company that's 60 odd years of age to best represent themselves on social media, which is something completely new. And nowadays, if you were to set up a business, you'd probably have a Facebook page before you had a website. You may have a Facebook page before you've got clients. So that's one of the challenges that I find, to take an old company and make it seem relevant and findable and approachable in various manners, like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. So that's an aspect that we find
I
quite
suppose
tricky.
in an industry where you've got to be careful what you say and the people that you work with, and
exactly that.
How do you create a video about that?
I'm always mindful that the great team that we've got, they're constantly taking images of work that they do and cataloguing that work.
Yeah.
But we have to be very careful how we share that work.
Yeah.
Homeowners may not necessarily want their doors imaged on
Sure.
social media platforms, and likewise commercial clients, they might not want
people knowing. So commercially.
Yeah, commercially we work for a lot of universities, schools, colleges.
Yeah.
That's like the whole educational sector, housing associations, local authority housing, local authority themselves, care homes, retirement courts, and those kind of places, facilities management companies. They're sort of the people that we can offer services to and work with on a sort of regular basis.
Sure.
I suppose I should give you an indication of some of my involvement in the industry from sort of leaving college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I probably knew what I didn't want to do, and I didn't think, and I'm not sure if I've even qualified or got into higher education like university. So an opportunity came to join the company, which I did, and I started at the very bottom. I was making the tea and sweeping up, and working in the shop, in the workshop, learning the art of locksmithing, cutting keys, servicing locks, but on the bench. So what we would class in the industry as bench locksmithing,
right? Okay.
Which is still quite important because it's somewhere where you would learn the fundamental workings of locking mechanisms, but not in an external environment, so out at a client's door or a client's site. And we still employ now what we would class as he's more than that, but we would class someone who's a bench locksmith.
Okay.
Who works in the shop full time. It's an important role, and it's something that is sadly probably lost now in the industry, or starting to be lost in the industry, because people don't necessarily need premises anymore. People can be mobile, work from their vans. So the art of learning that aspect of the industry is slowly diminishing. So it's a skill set that's important to maintain, and it's something that if we get new employees in, or if we take on younger members of staff, apprentices, then the first thing they would do is start learning the art of bench locksmithing.
Right.
So that's what I did, and then I moved then into the master keying department, which is where we build mechanical locking systems to suit a customer's requirement.
Right. Okay.
To give that sort of an idea, you would have a certain key that operated one door, but above that you would have a key that maybe operated every door on that floor, and above that then a building master key that would do every door in the building, and then it can be broken up even further from that. And that for us is a busy part of our business. Master keying department, there's usually 2 of them in there at any one time, working through keys and cylinders and orders that come in. From there I then moved out, got in the van and started to become a jobbing locksmith. So being reactive. At the time we had a maintenance contract with 2 of the banks doing the northwest region. So it meant that I had opportunity to sort of learn and work so we were quite quickly. And that was quite nice work while we had it. And off we went. We travelled all around the area, reacting to reactive maintenance as and when required. And then I came back into the office, and that's when I started to sort of learn the business as such. So nowadays I wouldn't regard myself as a locksmith.
No.
I'm quite simply somebody in business that so happens to be a locksmith company, or an element of locksmithing within the company. And that's when really I sort of started to find my feet in the company. And that's sort of about 10 years ago. So the last 10 years really I've been sort of learning everything about the company, and then learning the aspects of being in business, which is something that I do enjoy. So now my day-to-day basis is just run the company on a day-to-day basis, really. Manage the jobs that are coming in, schedule them to the engineers that we've got on the road, react to clients' needs, and then also keep an eye on manage cash flow, make sure to maintain a margin, little things that you have to make sure you keep on top of, because it's very easy in business for if those to slip.
Sure.
And if they do slip, then you find yourself in trouble. But that's what I really enjoy doing.
Sure. Well, that's quite interesting, because I spoke to a few owners of family businesses, and you get different reactions when you say, well, is this what you wanted to do? And some are a bit lost in the world where it might be financially beneficial, but they're a bit, it's not really what they found themselves doing. And you kind of touched on it briefly there at the start about it. You just kind of, it was a thing to do.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose at first it was a thing to do, and then it was something to do that stopped me from maybe doing something else. But before, I didn't know what that something else was.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was through the door, I sort of knew it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Once I started doing it, started enjoying the job, and as soon as you learn something new, and you can take ownership quite quickly. You know, that's your job.
Sure.
You know, and as soon as I was given this sort of responsibility and the skill set to do that job, there's one thing that is very important about the company that we've always maintained. We've always had good staff, but staff that have always been happy to pass knowledge on.
Yeah.
And that's in any sort of trade and skill. That's imperative.
Yeah.
You don't want skills lost in society if you can pass them down, and that's still the case now. We've got 5 great locksmiths that work for us.
Yeah.
Each one of them has its unique skill sets, but then sort of the collective sum of those individual parts, when they come together,
Sure.
you know, that's probably something now that if I was to say if you asked what I was most proud of about the company, it wouldn't necessarily be jobs that we've won or orders that we've won or stuff. It'd be the team that we've currently put together.
Sure.
It's probably what I'm most proud of, because I know what that team can achieve, and that's sort of the path that we're on now. And they're really 5 great guys that work for us.
It's interesting you say that, because in most businesses, technology changes, and the way you react, you bring new people in that might not have the experience of doing stuff that you might come across. I suppose my limited knowledge of what you guys do, you might get asked to come and open a very old safe, and that's very different to the stuff the new stuff that's out.
Yeah.
Like, well,
exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. And you'd be amazed the amount of times that we do work on in sort of institutions or like town halls or churches, or listed buildings, or say for somebody like, say, the National Trust, on their listed buildings, and you come across something that is probably older than most of us put together. but using those fundamental skills that we maintain within the company, we're able to offer a solution to them.
Sure.
And that solution wouldn't be something that they could just pick off the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, that's why the skill set is important to maintain.
Sure. We found a lot of people who talk to the successful businesses as solution first, and out of the box isn't really. You might get that at a lower level, but at the higher levels, the bigger companies want something.
I'd class us as a service-driven company.
Yeah.
So we're not. I wouldn't say we're price point based. So if you're looking for the cheapest, you probably wouldn't be the best fit.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for the best service, then I think that's why customers come to City Lock and Safe.
Sure. And so, moving on from there, your business is doing well, you're running it. What kind of challenges are around at the moment that you face?
I guess like any business, you've always got an element of challenges from competitors, and in our industry there aren't many companies that set themselves up now to the level that we are at. There are lots of bigger companies now within our industry, but the onus seems to now be on man or woman in a van,
right?
Much less lower cost base,
yeah.
But ultimately then trying to offer the same level of service, or at least portraying themselves to offer the same level of service, and sometimes getting the message across to the client that the level of service that we offer would be far greater. And again, that's what I'll touch back on, stuff that we spoke about in the past, is how do we best get that message across in a world that's reliant or heavily on social media. So on, I don't think we best represent ourselves on those lines of Facebook and Instagram, Twitter and all those sort of places. Whereas a new starter would probably knock us out of the water in those sort of platforms. So that's certainly a challenge. And then other, not necessarily challenges, but the more exciting challenges is implement changes that we've done over the last few years. So just, I think off the top of my head, we've introduced a whole new system into our retail shop. Okay. We've extended the counter so we can now serve more customers at more time, and we've got a full EPOS system in there that we introduced last year, sort of June time, and ultimately come November of this year, we're all working towards that system will sort of go on to run the company.
Okay.
We'll ditch using the operating system that we use at the moment, although we'll keep it. It'll be our final accounting software.
Sure. But
this new system will then run the wider scope of the company rather than just at retail shop.
Sure. Well, I suppose you gain more insights and data from that.
Yeah, and that, not that you couldn't gain those insights and data from the system that we're using now, but this system is far better. Certainly, it's a retail product, so it's great for the retail shop. It's absolutely, it really is. And I know of another couple of people that are using it and use it more than we do currently. So I know what scope we can achieve from it, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to doing for the next few months. As daunting as that might be, because myself included. But new computer systems to staff that have used older systems for a very long time, as daunting as that might be, but we'll just have to do it.
From my experience in software companies, the training of staff on new software is the biggest reason why it's not taken up. The amount of money that's spent on software that isn't used is unbelievable. Because no one likes change.
I can believe it. And
that's what you do, and
that's the sort of mountain that we're sort of are at the bottom of. Looking forward to the hike, you could say.
Especially if they're not technical as well. If they're not that way inclined. Doing something different is, can really affect the uptake for the users. Moving forward, challenges, opportunities. Where do you see the industry going?
So for ourselves, we've got lots of opportunity. We've got some nice clients that have got a lot of big projects up and coming. That I'm looking forward to. As for the industry, the locksmithing industry, it would be nice to see some legislation in the industry. I touched upon the MLA. The MLA, I've said before, they're not a governing body, but they're a recognised body within the public remit. It'd be nice if it was lobbied in Parliament for locksmiths to be sort of accredited, regulated. We're not quite there yet, but that would be something that'd be nice to see. I think it's massively important. Ultimately, if the person that is securing your home, you need to know that they've been vetted and inspected. So I think that would be certainly something that I would like to see.
Sure.
Whether that happens or not, so not a decision for me to make. But that's, if they were asked me, that's what I would probably say to them.
Could drive the industry on.
I think so. And there are other industries out there like electricians and plumbers that they could almost copy, or certainly take inspiration from. Certainly in the beginning, anyway.
Sure. Have you got any success stories that you can tell us at a higher level, and not mention names or institutions that you're proud of? Or
there was one I was thinking of on the way in that I often forget, and it's not necessarily it's not a big it wasn't a big job by any stretch, but it was. I got a telephone call quite late one afternoon. I'm going back a number of years. And at the time we had a website that was just quite ordinary, and it was a catalogue effectively. It was an old school catalogue, but on a page format. So it had lots of stock codes on there that wouldn't really mean anything to anybody unless you knew what you were looking for. And I got a telephone call from a lady who was working on the set of the James Bond film. And they had an incident that day during filming where a door handle had broken.
Right.
Someone had obviously, this box had landed on her desk to say, find another one of these for tomorrow so that we can carry on shooting. And apparently it was an integral part of the scene. I don't know if it was which character it was, but they'd to grab this door handle when it was broken off. So she's rang me up in a panic because she's found that the stock code on the box corresponds with the stock code on our website, and it's something that we stock. So at first we went back and forth, and I sort of thought it's quite strange for someone to mention a stock code if they're not inside the industry. So we got to the bottom of how she's come across this code, and she's explained the situation. So obviously then I've got interested in it, and I thought I'd quite like to resolve this for her. So I got off the phone, got the phone to the supplier, because it wasn't one we had in stock ourselves, explained the situation to them, and all of a sudden they got interested because it was probably gone 4 o'clock, so I'm not quite sure how they managed it. She needed this handle by 10 o'clock the next day, so we managed to arrange for the handle to be dispatched before, but they probably missed the carriers for the day, or it must have been right on the cut-off point, and it managed to make the carrier that day, and they got the handle on site, on set, the following morning for it to be screwed on the door by someone for that day's filming to commence. So that's one of the stories that sort of happened, and that's one that's memorable, probably far more memorable than some of the bigger projects. And there was an instance once when the FA Cup was being paraded around schools in Stockport, and the FA Cup came in a nice presentation case. When it opened out, the inside was sort of hollowed out with protective foam to the exact model of the FA Cup. So when you closed it, cushioned it in, and it had a lock and key. And at some point between schools, that key had gone missing. So in came this big presentation. I think it was a wooden box, nicely varnished and on the counter, and had to be opened so that they could continue to demonstrate the FA Cup round the schools. So that's another one.
I suppose the biggest thing, if you're one of your domestic customers maybe, is being broken into. It's a big thing emotionally for them, and a big there's psychologically there's worries about, will it happen again, I know from using you guys, you'd be quite big on the care of the customer.
We are, massively. I mean, honesty, integrity is important within our industry. If you haven't got your honesty and your integrity, then close the door. So and all the guys are very good, and they're compassionate under certain situations, but that's massive, and we have a company slogan which is trusted for security since 1957, keeping you safe and secure for over 65 years, and that's massively important to us, that we maintain those morals, so that when you go into a situation that requires a slightly more delicate touch, we can get in, do our job, make the customer secure, and leave.
It's really important.
And then that comes back to, which is about Google, and how we best represent an old company on Google. We didn't really take Google very seriously up until very recently, and only in the last 4 or 5 years, or to say 4 years, have we started to push Google reviews, which now is a massive part of the team. Are all sort of, they've got a little competition going on amongst themselves, see if they can get their name mentioned in a review, and it's fantastic. And now we've got pretty nigh on, as I sit here today, probably close to 450 positive Google reviews, and I think that's probably a good few more than any sort of like-for-like company in our area. And that speaks volumes for them, really, and that sort of keeps us honest to our values.
So this podcast was kind of created for business owners, and I suppose you started as an apprentice and moved through the business, and now taking over family business, which is doing very well. Do you have any advice for other business owners?
So you're quite right. I started off setting out learning to be a locksmith, and then sort of parked that on one side and then learned how to run a business.
Yeah.
All learning while doing,
Job.
which is maybe sometimes the best way to learn. So industry aside, and this isn't relevant to the locksmith industry, but it's certainly something that I do, and I think I've come up with this. I haven't heard anyone else say it, but if they have, I apologise. A key element that I sort of stick to, and I think is important, is find your method and then be relentless. And if I was to give any bit of advice to any business person, up and coming business person, it would be find your method and be relentless. Because once you've found that method, and it might not necessarily be easy, and you might have to try different ways of doing things, but once you've found that method that works for you in whatever aspect of work that you're doing, and once you've found that it works, just keep doing it. Be relentless. Repeat. And your 9:30 call on a Monday is important as your 10 to 5 call on a Friday. Treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
Chase everyone. You never know where you might end up.
Sometimes you speak to business. I've done it myself, where you're like, I could do with some new business. How did I win it in the past? Oh right, yeah, I used to do this. Why did I stop? Yeah. So it makes sense to be relentless.
And as a business, I would say we're far more necessarily proactive than we are reactive. Sorry, no, that's the wrong way around.
Reactive.
Yeah, we're far more reactive than we are proactive. Which means it doesn't always necessarily have to be a grand plan.
No.
But as long as you can react to everything that comes in and make the very most of that, then I think you set your stall out to be quite successful in business.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
If there's anyone that'd be interested in finding your business for what you do, how would they find you?
Yeah, you can call us 0161 480 6116.
Old school.
Or you can look us up online, www.citylockandsafe.co.uk, or email us info@citylockandsafe.co.uk.
Marvellous. Well, pleasure to have you on, George.
Thank you.